Show me a strong community and I'll show you an outstanding educational community.
Yes, sir.
I've had a fundamental belief throughout most of my career that the biggest room in the world is the room for improvement.
Teachers are the backbone of our communities. They're the backbone of our schools.
One of the best things that can ever happen to a pension fund is to have double-digit returns.
Yes, it is. Hi, I'm Everett Crockett. Welcome to TRS, Your Retirement in Focus. Members and friends, today's podcast is a first, a passing of the torch, if you will, as we are going to do something on our podcast today that we've not done before. This year marks a pivotal moment for the Teachers Retirement System of Georgia as we honor the distinguished legacy of Dr. L.C. Buster Evans and welcome a new era of leadership under the direction of Dr. Jason Branch. We are privileged today to have both leaders here with us on this podcast. First, let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Buster Evans, who is retiring after 9 remarkable years as our executive director. A lifelong educator, Dr. Evans has been a steady and highly visible leader, skillfully guiding TRS through macroeconomic downturns and challenging legislative changes, all while enhancing the system's transparency and strategic planning. His successor and the newly appointed executive director of the Teachers Retirement System of Georgia is Dr. Jason Branch. Dr. Branch is no stranger to our mission, having served as vice chairman on the board of trustees for TRS. He brings decades of experience as a celebrated superintendent and a clear focus on leadership development and technology. Today, we will reflect on TRS's stellar 2025 and the achievements therein, and what the transition of leadership means for TRS. So members and friends, join me now as we warmly welcome our outgoing executive director and our newly appointed executive director, Dr. L.C. Buster Evans and Dr. Jason Branch. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. It's great to have you here today.
Everett, it's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for your pioneering work with our podcast here at TRS. And I know Dr. Branch and I are both thrilled just to be able to spend this time with you. Very special time for us. And so thank you for your time.
Yes, sir.
Honored to be with you both.
Excellent. Good to have you. Now, Dr. Evans, Dr. Branch, our first series of questions will focus on TRS's year end. Either or both of you can feel free to answer these questions, so we'll jump right into that. Now, are there any changes or new laws that have an impact on the system?
Well, Everett, I'll take that one. There are a few laws that have been considered and are currently out for actuarial fiscal note. And so we have a few of those. Senate Bill 209 takes a look at providing the TRS option for PSER members. Okay. And so what that does is it gives them an opportunity to have a one-time irrevocable choice to become TRS members. So As I said, we're out studying that one. And then one that many of our members have asked about, and I know Dr. Evans and I have done some other podcasts recently on, we have Senate Bill 150, which is sponsored by Senator Billy Hickman, and House Bill 372, that is sponsored by Representative Bethany Ballard. Mm-hmm. Both of those look at extending House Bill 385, which was our return to work bill that is sunsetting in June 2026. Very popular bill for our employers and our retirees. And so I talked just a little bit about both of those, if you'll allow me. Senate Bill 150 expands the opportunity in all content areas for retirees to return to work and assist in teaching. It has a 2-month separation.
Okay.
Our current House Bill 385 has a 12-month separation.
Yes.
And is the top 3 highest needs determined by the RESA.
Okay.
So that bill is out there, and then we have House Bill 372, Representative Ballard's bill. It is a little bit more limiting, but it works with the school system. So the school systems are allowed to determine their highest needed areas at the local level, not impacted by other local school systems as they are in the RESA.
Understood.
It maintains the 12-month separation period but also expands out to some additional content areas. And both Senate Bill 150 and House Bill 372 embrace the literacy focus of the state of Georgia and allowing teachers that work with literacy in a variety of areas to come back. So all those particular bills are probably of great interest to our members or our members that would like to be members who are PSERs. And so we'll continue to watch those, hope to get those fiscal notes in the near future. And we'll be working with our elected officials as we go forward on that.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, the stock market has had some ups and downs this year. How well has TRS done this year with its return on investment?
Everett, that is one of my favorite questions.
Yes, I do.
And it is also a favorite question to answer when the markets have been really, really good.
Yes.
And so the good news is I get to talk about some good news, but I also want to couch it with just some awareness. First of all, we've had a great year, calendar year as well as fiscal year to date. We're double digits for the calendar year to date, over almost 8% of return for the fiscal year to date. And that follows three quite honestly, industry-leading years where we've had double-digit returns. For last year, 12.2%. The previous year to that, 14.5%. And the year before that, 11.9%. One of the best things that can ever happen to a pension fund who has most of its assets invested in the equity markets is to have double-digit returns.
Yes, it is.
It's great for us. Now, that's not always going to happen. Now, I guess I'll have to just kind of temper what we said with 3 consecutive years of really good returns and then being in the current year that maybe is not yet over with and the rest of the story hasn't been told.
True.
But typically, we see markets have negative years in about 2 out of every 9 or 10 years. And so we're in 4 consecutive years of really, really good returns. We're going to take these good returns while we're at it.
Yes.
We're fortunate to have an asset allocation that is pretty conservative. It's well managed, and it's managed at a cost which is basically among the lowest pension systems in the United States. So 3 consecutive good years in the books and another year well on the way to being a positive year for the investments of the teachers' retirement system in Georgia.
Yes, sir. Well, certainly that's good news, and I know our members will be glad to hear about that. Well, for those that may be worried about the economy at large and how it affects the system, what would you say to them?
It's always interesting. It seems like it doesn't matter if it's good times or bad times. About half the people in the society are negative about the economy. Another half are positive about the economy.
Yeah, you're right.
There are some actually mixed signals out there right now. We've had the great year that I've already referred to. We see other segments of the economy that may be showing some underlying weakness. But, I continue to be optimistic about it. And it's easy to talk about what's wrong with our country. It's easy to talk about maybe concerns that we can be scared about, but quite honestly, I am positive. We're always going to have periods of strength, and we're always going to have periods that we go through from recessions from time to time.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But our economy is resilient, it is strong, and I believe in the free enterprise system that we're so fortunate to be a part of in the United States of America. And I also believe that it is even easier now for all of us to be invested in America, easier than any other time in our history. So thankful for that, and we continue to benefit from an asset allocation in the teachers' retirement system of Georgia, largely in equities, a lesser amount in fixed income, and then even a very smaller amount in alternatives or private equity.
Well said, Dr. Evans. Thank you so much. That is great news. Great news, I tell you. Well, the state of Georgia has launched several initiatives around recruiting new teachers and retaining existing ones. How important is that not only for our students, but for our pension plan as well?
Well, I think it's extremely important, Everett. As you know, and I've been often quoted as saying, education is a people business. And show me a strong community and I'll show you an outstanding educational community.
Yes, sir.
Teachers are the backbone of our communities. They're the backbone of our schools. And so the recruitment and retention of teachers is one of the most important things I think we can focus on as a state. And certainly that's a very important piece to our pension system as well.
Yes.
As you know, we have around 150,000 retirees, but we also have around 250,000 active contributing members. Mm-hmm. That's extremely important in terms of the life of the pension system. They continue to have that ratio be appropriate and support the retirees and support the members that seek to be retirees at some point. Mm-hmm. So very, very important there. The state of Georgia has done some excellent work, and I'm proud to say that Dr. Evans and several members of our team have been invited to the table to work on that, specifically Senate Resolution 237. 237 asked the Professional Standards Commission to convene several agencies from around the state, along with various educational partners, to focus solely and specifically on the retention and recruitment of educators.
Okay.
And so we have been working for the last several months. We actually have a report that will be due to the Senate committee in December. And so we'll be meeting and finalizing some recommendations in November for that. And as you might imagine, and certainly we're biased in this nature, but one of the top things that continues to bubble up in all groups is the importance of having a defined benefit in the TRS system for not only the retention of outstanding educators, but how do we continue to focus on that and highlight that as a recruitment tool to someone who may be entering the workforce and not yet thinking about retirement.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But we know, those of us who have experienced it or getting close to experience it, what a wonderful, wonderful piece that is.
Totally agree with you. Totally agree with that. Well, TRS has set a standard for itself when it comes to giving back and has participated greatly in past state charitable contribution campaigns. How did TRS do during the last campaign?
Everett, you know me well enough over the years that we've worked together that this is once again one of my favorite questions. You also have been around here long enough to know that 10 years ago, this was not the case.
This is true.
When I first came here 9 years ago, the previous year, we had contributed a total of about $330 to the state's charitable contribution program.
Not good.
And we were actually, that was rather embarrassing. So we set a goal that we were going to do better than that next year, and we did do better. We went from $300 to $3,300. That's 10 times. And boy, I was feeling really just cocky about that, about how well that we had done.
Right.
And, then things happened. We had some change of personnel, brought some people in and that actually had some experience and exhibited some leadership skills about bringing our team together. And so there's several things about this. First of all, to say, the reason why we thought this was important is that I've long believed that great organizations are giving organizations.
Yes.
And that they recognize that we are blessed and we're here to serve, and that because we've been given much, we have an opportunity and a responsibility to give to other people. So we put all those things into motion, and then I'm so thrilled to again reiterate and share with our listening community that for 7 consecutive years, Teachers Retirement System of Georgia has received the Governor's Award for the amount of contributions to the state's charitable contribution program. It has been fun. We've learned about each other. We've set goals. We've achieved. We've given together. And we've just made this a part of our culture at the Teachers Retirement System of Georgia. During these last 7 years, I took a little tally a while ago before coming in, over $350,000 has been raised by this agency, one of the smallest agencies in the state that has given more money than some of the largest agencies in the state of Georgia. And that's something that not only am I proud of, but everyone here in our building at TRS is proud of.
I'll say so, and should be. And I'd like to mention, we've had fun along the way, too. We had some interesting events here in the building. Here on the campus. I've learned a lot about some of our co-workers and from the cultures they're from. And I've experienced some meals that I'd never experienced before in my life during some of these fundraising events. So, yeah, hats off to all of TRS for all that they've done, giving for charitable contributions. Well, our agency has made significant strides in providing supplemental resources for our members to help them prepare for retirement. Please share your thoughts about the system's investment in its own employees.
Everett, we all know that the strongest part of any organization is the people that work there.
True.
And we become a better organization by bringing the right people in, giving them the tools and the support to do their job, and us working together. We've consciously focused on building a strong, productive, and supportive culture within our agency. There's an old saying that says, culture beats strategy every day. And we have been deliberate about this because we do believe this. First of all, we started by creating a succession plan, of which I'm so thrilled as part of the reason why we're sitting here today doing what we're doing. But that succession plan wasn't just about the executive director. It was about the people who work as our division directors. It's about the people who even come work in our entry-level positions and giving them a pathway so that they can come here. The true story about a pension system director in another state in this country came to work here in this building, not at TRS, but our sister agency, ERS, in the mailroom.
Wow.
He today is the executive director of a retirement system. But we feel like that a growing agency where our people are growing helps us all be better.
Yes.
So we've done some things. We focused on leadership development. We've listened to team members. We created an employee advisory committee that has met regularly with the executive director. That group has created some opportunities and events that have become a part of what? Become a part of our culture.
Yes.
We talk about more about organizational giving later, but while a lot of this was conscious, a certain part of this was basically doing what we do every day as a part of what we do. So whether it was leadership development, whether it's our wellness program, whether it's our employee advisory committee, our succession plan, all of that has been some things that we've tried to do to create opportunities for everyone in this agency, and we think it's made us a stronger agency as well.
I totally concur with that. Yes, I do.
Everett, I'd love to say something about that if I can, just as someone who's been on the board for several years, but now get the privilege of working here every single day. I've been amazed at no matter what the role of the individual, everyone is walking, with a straight back and their shoulders tilted back and a sense of pride in this organization and an ease of communication with each other that you can tell has intentionally been crafted and supported over the years. And I think, speaking humbly, I believe that's one of Dr. Evans's greatest legacy in this organization is just the way that he's made people feel, seen, valued, heard. And it oozes in the organization the minute you walk through the door. So I'm proud to be a part of that and honored and privileged to try to carry that forward.
Wow.
And Everett, I like his word oozes. I mean, if that's who we are, maybe what we've done is work. So, Jason, thank you for that adjective, I believe, or either whatever it is, it's a good descriptor.
I totally like that, too.
Little South Georgia for the podcast.
There we go. Little South Georgia. Here we go again. Well, we knew at some point that this day would come. But for those of you who may not be aware, Dr. Evans will be retired effective November 1st, 2025, and Dr. Branch, his successor, will be our new executive director. They both have had an extensive career in education and have spent time as board members of our system. We at TRS know that our members are in good hands, but for right now, we'll have some conversation around what this transition means for our system. Now, Dr. Evans and Dr. Branch, these first couple of questions are for both of you, so feel free to answer as you like. How does your prior experience in educational leadership impact your decision-making as an executive director for TRS?
Everett, Jason said something just a few minutes ago that was very, very true. Education business is people business. We've spent our entire careers working with people with the goal that everyone, every child, every teacher, everyone in our organization needs to be successful. It is the kind of culture that we've come from. So having that, we also come into this particular type of role and that we believe in people and we believe in education. But not only do we believe in education, we believe in public education. And as a component of that, we also believe in the mission of the Teachers Retirement System of Georgia. We were created in 1943. We became operational in 1945. The goal was so that we could attract and recruit quality educators, that we could keep them by having a retention factor, and then ensure that our educators, when they retire, they could live out there, in the words of our governor at that time, Ellis Arnold said, they could live out their retirement years with dignity.
Wow. Being
Being someone who's about to be totally retired, I am thrilled to think that I might be able to live out my retirement years with dignity. But we do believe in the mission. But we do believe that our plan is an important component of educational policy. It helps keep good teachers in the classroom. When we keep good teachers in the classroom, we give the boys and girls of this state the best opportunity at success that they can possibly have. And having been down this path along with Jason, I think he's pretty much the same way as I am in terms of a lot of this.
I would agree. I think some great points made. I'm a firm believer that you end up where you're supposed to be. And as educators, I think Dr. Evans and I, neither one set out to be the executive director of the teacher retirement system. However, we understand the importance of that mission and the importance of what it means to educators in the classroom every day and the students that they serve.
Yes, sir.
And so I think it's of great importance that we are close enough to that we can say that we understand to a certain extent the day-to-day of an educator and what their life looks like. And having been a teacher and having been a building level administrator, you and I were talking about coaching earlier.
Yes.
Supporting districts and working with boards and elected officials. I think that's an important piece, and I think you take all your life's experiences into the decisions that you make in so many facets, and I think that's one that I believe has served Dr. Evans well, and I think will serve me well as well.
Excellent. Well, what are some of the things that give you assurance in how well the plan is administered?
Everett, I really do believe we have a strongly administered plan, whether I'm sitting here sharing this or somebody else with. But I've had a fundamental belief throughout most of my career that the biggest room in the world is the room for improvement. And I think that we've had a mindset of continuous improvement. I know that Dr. Branch and I both, as school superintendents, that marked our legacy and what we focused on, continuous improvement along the way. I also have another saying that leadership is transferable. And if I'm an effective leader in one setting, in one organization, I take that same skill set and I can apply that leadership ability that I've had along the way. Now, I say all that as some precursors to 4 or 5 pieces of evidence that I would use to talk about the strength of the plan being administered well. And it's not a single person that's doing this. It is a team effort.
Yes.
First and foremost, for 37 consecutive years, our system has received the GFOA Award for Financial Excellence. That doesn't happen in every agency, but for 37 consecutive years, that has been a priority. It has been a focus of ours. We have outstanding customer service. We have focused on customer service as a part of everything that we do. Are we perfect? No. Do we continuously seek to improve? There's not a day that goes by that over the last 4 months that Dr. Branch and I have not had that conversation about how, I'm going out the door.
Yes.
But the reality of it is we know that we can continue to improve, and we ought to continue to try to improve.
Yes.
I was just going over this morning with Winston Buckley some of the growth of our social media, including this podcast and all the other ways, and it is phenomenal, the pathway that we've been and the way that we're reaching people, and that not only are we doing it, we've been a pioneer. And it's been because we've had innovative leaders like Winston and all of our other directors taking the initiative and being the first retirement system in the country to have its podcast, which makes you the first pension system podcaster host in the country. And I'm sure we're paying you heftily for that honor and service.
No doubt about it.
But absolutely. But we've done that. We something that I've focused on, we have the lowest employee turnover rate of any state agency in the state of Georgia. I'm pretty sure it's not because we pay people that astronomically well. I'm sure it's not because we don't make people work. It's because our people are focused on a mission.
Yes.
And I think it's also been a part of the fact that we've tried to make employee, we talked about culture a while ago. We've been very deliberate about that, and I believe that is one of the ways that this has paid off. We also recognize in our state, and I've recognized this for a number of years, policymakers understand the importance of our retirement system as a part of educational policy. One of the greatest leaders in the state Senate that I ever worked with several years ago shared with me, he says, Buster, if you think we have a teaching shortage in Georgia now, it would be shameful to think about what we would have if we did not have our retirement system. Wow. So we have state leaders from the executive branch right on through the legislative branch who recognize the value of our retirement system as a part of educational policy. We have groups like the Georgia Retired Educators Association and the GAE Retired Group that are involved with us in our agency, and that we've been involved in them. And I know Jason's going to follow some of the same things that I do. We write columns for them. We go and speak at their events. That's how I can tell you that I know retired educators are some of the happiest people I know, because we live with them. We see that, and they've been a part of our lives. So we think that there are several things that are happening. You know, while I am typically an optimistic person, I really do have a lot of reasons to be optimistic about our agency and the purpose that we have in Georgia as we contribute to the solutions to continue to make education and public education strong in the state of Georgia.
Wow. That was just simply outstanding, Dr. Evans. And while we're on that topic, I'd just like to take the liberty to say, especially with regard to this podcast, I remember where we started, and this is season 6, and we have come such a long way. We have an engineer, we have a podcast team. But folks, when we started on cell phones, and I would have to search for a good spot around my basement or my house or my deck or my yard and have guests to call in and speak with us. So we've come a long way, and all of that we have to attribute to Dr. Evans, and we appreciate your support of our podcast. It's made the difference as we've gotten to where we are today.
But Everett, you and the team supporting this, because every one of the people who came to be a part of this stepped up out above and beyond their normal. That's what makes this team so special.
Yes, sir.
And people stepped up. And they didn't ask the question, how much more money are you going to pay me? They said they want to be a part of something good. They want to be a part of something that's pioneering. Yeah. And so from the technical standpoint of Brad and Tim, and I know that I'm going to leave some people's names off, and I don't mean to do that.
Right.
But with Winston and Leah and Anita and that whole team, you know, it's been a joint effort. And that, again, is what makes this agency special. We're willing to work across the silos for the benefit and the betterment of the entire organization.
Yeah, I would completely agree, and I love the history lesson you guys just provided, not only me but our audience. One of the things I tell people when I got on the board, and since I've had the honor to work here, is that I knew that TRS was an outstanding plan, a wonderful benefit for teachers, and that it was a well-run organization. What I didn't know is how outstanding our people were.
Yeah,
and so when I read the question about assurances, I get more assurance each day when I walk in and see our staff here working. And then when I'm out visiting our teachers, our leaders, our employers, and they tell the stories of, you know, I just want you to know what an excellent experience I had, how this person went above and beyond to provide. Prior to coming in here, I received a text from one of our members that just said, thank you so much. Had an issue yesterday that was just a question, and our folks got to the individual, took care of them, and went the extra mile. And I'm often fond of saying that lots of folks will go 90%, but that extra 10% is what makes the difference. And I see that in our organization daily, and it gives me great assurance that our plan will continue to be successful.
That is so encouraging, so encouraging. Thank you so much for sharing that. Well, Dr. Evans, here are a few questions for you, and Dr. Branch, we got some for you as well. But let's start with Dr. Evans. What operational or technological improvements were you most proud of that enhanced services for our members?
Well, we just talked a little bit about our growth and our social media and our educational campaign. That is something that has totally changed over the last 9 years. And we now have major presence on all social media platforms. We are creating content for our members so that they don't have to, if they know where to go, they don't have to wonder. They can educate themselves. And we have that information that continues to be produced on a regular basis. I've had a saying that I've had for much of my career that I think there are 3 things every organization ought to seek to do. First of all, we ought to provide world-class service. We ought to do it efficiently. And number 3, we ought to be able to enjoy the work.
Yes.
And I hope and I believe that some of the things that we're talking about as even a part of this technology is representative of that. Now, there are some things that I can point to that happened that were absolutely necessary during our lifetime. I can remember in 2019, Winston Buckley was working on a special project that he and I had come up with. I'm not going to say who came up with it. It was probably him, but it was one of those things that we wanted to provide virtual counseling for people. And this was it. Now think about this. This was December 2019.
Oh my gosh.
When Winston unveiled that product. Little did we know that in 3 months we would completely flip the workplace, and that in 3 months' time, for us to continue to do what we were doing to help educators retire, we were able to, instead of meeting face to face, we created a system and a format where educators did not have to leave home from Valdosta, Georgia, and drive 5 hours. Matter of fact, just 30 minutes ago when I was walking in here, there was someone hastily coming in the buildings, said they had driven up and they had been 3 hours in traffic.
Oh my
Well,
goodness.
I can relate to that, but you know what? By virtual counseling, they never have to leave their school. And consequently, our school superintendents don't have to hire a substitute teacher, and they don't have to get frustrated on the downtown Atlanta connector
Yes,
trying
indeed.
to get to our building on the
Yes,
north side.
indeed.
So there have been some things. So we completely flipped that, and we continued to be operational during the COVID pandemic.
Yes.
In addition to that, we knew that we had to make sure that people got paid. We knew that we had to help customer service. All of our customer service agents were assigned to their home, where they actually kind of enjoyed that assignment from that point on, and even to this day are still able to do much of their work many days of the week working from home.
Yes.
And again, contributing to something that we can do and provide the right balance for making sure that we're giving our employees the best work experience that we can give. So virtual counseling was so critical. During that period, something else we also did, we opened the Macon office, whereas instead of people who want a face-to-face meeting, they don't have to drive all the way from Bainbridge, Georgia to Atlanta. If they want a face-to-face, they can come right there in Bibb County in the central part of the state, where now almost 2/3 of the state, instead of choosing to drive to Atlanta for counseling, will choose to go to an outstanding facility in Macon that's providing some of the best retirement counseling that we have in our organization. And I think that's one of the things. I think another thing that we've thought about, and Dr. Branch in our careers also experienced this, we as educators also define ourselves as lifelong learners. We think that we ought to continue to create learning opportunities for people in the organization. So we implemented a learning management system so that we could help train our people better do ongoing training. And when we wanted to do that from the very beginning, there were some people who told us it couldn't be done. And we didn't accept no, and we had already done it, and we knew that it could be done.
Sure.
So as of today, chances are, if you're going to go through any type of training in our organization, you're going to be participating through our learning management system, which just helps us become more and more efficient. So we've done a number of things, and I think we're a better organization because we have opened the door to innovation. I have a saying that goes something like this: if everything that you're trying to do works, you're probably not trying hard enough.
Man.
And so it's okay to try to do something that doesn't work out perfectly well, because most of the things that you do try, you'll be surprised at what you will be able to take away. It may not work out exactly like you intended, but it'll work. And you continue to get better as an organization, remembering that biggest room in the world is room for improvement.
Wow. Well said. Well, speaking of innovation, Dr. Evans, how did you foster an innovation and high-performing culture here at TRS. How'd you foster that?
Dr. Branch and I were both, as school system leaders, were leaders in school systems that needed to implement instructional technology to help have our students have the best opportunity at learning. Mm-hmm. It was the expectation of parents, it was the expectations of teachers, and it was the way that students learn today.
Yes.
So it was sort of thrust upon us. Secondly, I know that Jason and I both are intensely competitive people. We wanted our systems to do well. We wanted our students to have an opportunity to learn. So we were a part of implementing some technologies that in some ways were pioneering in our system. A lot of people don't realize this. I was a former technology director in a small system. So it was very much a part of our DNA. So we've talked about leadership being transferable. The same things that we did to be successful in another role clearly are the same types of things that we're going to do in another role of leadership. So as we implemented things, I think it made us more competitive in our local school systems, and I think it makes our workplace more competitive. I think it makes us more efficient. And we talked about people enjoying their work, and I think people enjoy using technology to be more effective in the workplace as well.
Yes, that sounds great. Dr. Evans, one of the books that you had your leadership team and potential leaders to read is Conscious Leadership by John Mackey. Why was it important for them to read this particular book?
Everett, for pretty much most of my adult life, I've been a reader of personal development, especially leadership books. I can remember very clearly as a young adult, I had a Sunday school teacher who had given me a book written by Zig Ziglar titled See You at the Top. And from that book on, I've tried to make sure that I constantly fed myself a steady diet of reading leadership development material. Now, Conscious Leadership was the first leadership book that had come out during the early months of the COVID pandemic. And it specifically mentioned and referenced leading in such difficult times. So it was a very timely book. So in that we were in the process of doing our Leadership Development Institute, I thought it would be a great book to share with our leadership team and our Leadership Development Institute group. This book actually served also as a reason for us to get together virtually during the pandemic. And I don't know how much people can remember what happened then, but there was a lot of isolation.
Yes.
And there was, in some cases, loneliness. And even for us, it was a conscious thing that we knew that we needed to keep our teams together. So on a monthly basis or whatever basis we were on, we were doing book study chapters and stuff like that. So we were really accomplishing two things at the same time. We were building leaders by reading quality leadership material, but we were also keeping a sense of togetherness during that time. So I thought that would be a great book. So this book, again, had the effect of helping us to grow as leaders, and but again, togetherness for us during one of the most challenging times in our lives. And still to this day, we talk about conscious leadership. And for those who haven't read the book, just a reminder that John Mackey, the author of Conscious Leadership, was the gentleman who started Whole Foods that subsequently was bought out by Amazon. So I think the guy probably knows a little bit about leadership, and it's an outstanding leadership read for everyone's library.
Yes, yes, indeed. Well, one more question just for you here, Dr. Evans. What made you confident in the selection of your successor?
Everett, that's the easiest question you've asked me all day. There's so much about Jason that mirrors my career in education as well as exposure to the retirement system. Though we both kind of took different pathways to our educational leadership positions, we sort of wound up in the same types of thing. We became school superintendents. We led two of the highest achieving school districts in the state of Georgia. As a result of that, we had good exposure in our communities. We had good exposure professionally. We had good exposure at the state level. Jason's a leader. He cares about people. He has strong political connections. He has a work ethic that's unmatched. His 8 years on our board as a trustee helped us to make sure that he was learning about this retirement system. He was learning about our people. He served on the investment committee. He served on the joint management committee, basically exposing him to literally every level of governance within this organization. We've had 4 months of working together almost every day. And even days that we weren't together face to face, we were talking throughout the day together. And listen, Dr. Branch is a man who'll ask questions. No doubt about it. And so we've had 4 months to work together day to day. We had 5 months before that we knew that he was coming on board. And then we had even had conversations along the way that had led up to that decision. So that was, basically one of those situations that I've had the privilege of being his friend. I've had the privilege of being his colleague. I've had the privilege of being his supporter for something like 18 years now. Wow. So unequivocally, this has been the most seamless, pleasant succession transition that I have ever seen, much less to be a part of it. My confidence could not be any higher. Besides, like when I became a TRS director in 2016, I knew that I could not mess up because my mother-in-law was a TRS retiree. I also know the fact that Dr. Branch's mother-in-law is a TRS retiree. If he wants to have any place to go for Christmas, he better do a great job managing the teachers' retirement system of Georgia, and I have no doubt. I'm truly thankful that our board, along with the support of Governor Kemp and his team, Dr. Jason Branch will be the next and no doubt one of the best leaders to ever lead the teachers' retirement system of Georgia.
That is outstanding news for our members, but especially for us employees here at the Teachers Retirement System of Georgia. Well, Dr. Branch, many of our members know you from previous roles, but for those who may not have come to know you yet, what would you like for them to know about you and your vision for TRS?
Well, the first thing I'd like them to know, Everett, is the first text I received when it became public that I was going to be named the executive director was from my mother-in-law, who is the retired educator. And she wanted to make sure that I knew how important the program was and also keep the colas coming, she said. So the pressure started immediately, but it's pressure that I welcome because of the importance of the work.
Yes.
A little bit about me. I feel like my life has been defined, or I try to define my life by 3 things: family, faith, and hard work. I grew up on a hog and tobacco farm in South Georgia and learned some tremendous lessons about items you can control in life and items you can't, the value of hard work and the value of saying what you mean and meaning what you say, and having integrity behind those words. My brother and I were first-generation college graduates, and I think, as I stated earlier, our experiences define who we are and the decisions that we make. So the importance of education has always been stressed in my family, and I think we're examples of the power of education, and not just education, but public education.
Yes.
And so growing up in a small town, 2 red lights, we knew all the teachers, they knew all our family members, and we knew that education was something that was key to giving us additional opportunities for what we would like to do going forward. As it relates to how that impacts the vision for TRS, I think keeping the importance of education and the importance of the mission of what our educators and employers are doing grounds our work and grounds the importance of us being servant leaders and ensuring that the service that we provide, which is the retirement with dignity, the deferred compensation that is available to our retirees so that they can enjoy the remainder of their retirement and look back fondly on those years of service. We talk often that education is a lifestyle, and so many of our educators have given so many years of their life. So it's just a privilege to be able to support that, and my vision is to continue the good work that's taking place. Of course, continue to aid in the recruitment and retention of the next level educators so that our program can be here for many, many more years to come and impact what I think is the most important, impactful piece we can do, which is the young people that live in our state.
Totally agree with that. Great information. Well, Dr. Branch, how will you measure your success as executive director 5 years from now, and what are some of the core principles that will help guide your decision making?
Excellent question. And, there's, as we've learned, as Dr. Evans talked about 5 years ago, we cannot predict what the future will bring.
No, we cannot.
But we have to be nimble and we have to embrace the present. And so, as we were discussing earlier, I think it's important as any agency, any institution, any individual to continue to learn and grow. Mm-hmm. And so, my vision for what we will look like in 5 years is an organization that is to continue to be focused on members first, continue to be focused on enhancements and efficiencies that not only make our work environment more conducive for success, but our service to our members excellent. I think we need to have world-class educators in the state of Georgia, and I think we do, and I think they deserve a world-class retirement system. And so I hope that as we sit here now in 5 years, we can say, wow, we had a world-class retirement system already, but again, look at the additional strides that we made through the outstanding service and individuals that we have in our organization.
Yeah, and we certainly tip our hat to our educators because I firmly believe we have the best. I really do. Well, should TRS members expect any changes during this transition, Dr. Branch?
I think consistency is important. I think listening is important. And I think change for change's sake is not necessary and is not important. And so I think the changes that will be made are changes that we will listen and hear from our members, hear from our staff, and determine based on research, thoughtfulness, data, that those decisions, if there are changes, impact us as an organization in a positive manner, and again, go back to providing a great service for our members. Mm-hmm. So, we know that there have only been 7 executive directors, and I'm honored and privileged to be sitting here as the 8th, and I think that consistency over time has been extremely valuable. And then when I look across our agency and the tenure of the individuals like yourself that have worked here for many, many years, that valuable institutional knowledge will be important as we continue to go forward. I think our members should understand and know that we value their thoughts, we value their feedback, and we will work closely with them, our elected officials, and our staff to ensure that we have a world-class retirement system, a retirement pension, and that it is sustainable for many, many years to come.
Sustainable. Great word right there. Well, gentlemen, as we come near the close of this interview, I have just a couple of more questions here. Dr. Branch, what can we look forward to in 2026 as we get close to the end of this year?
Well, as I said, I believe in servant leadership, and so I hope that 2026 will be a year of service. I think our agency already is one that works hard, plays hard, and gives back. And we want to continue that. As we know, there have been tremendous changes in leadership throughout the state as it relates to our educational leaders and many of our employers. And anytime you have change, you have additional change from the top all the way through the organization. So one of my goals, and Dr. Evans has already allowed me to begin doing this, is to go out and be where our members are, meet with our teachers, meet with our leaders, meet with our employers to get their feedback, to better understand, and to also give them a resource, a face, a name, a number that if they need something, they can reach out. And we are not an entity that is hard to get to in Atlanta, but we are feet on the ground, and we are out there serving them in the manner in which they need.
Accessibility. I like it.
Yes,
great.
sir.
Well, Dr. Evans, what message would you like to leave with our members and retirees and future TRS members?
All right, so this is my signing off, right?
Oh, get ready for it, folks.
Okay. Well, you know what? I am so thankful to have had the opportunity to serve as executive director for the last 9 years. And I think Dr. Branch mentioned it. This was never on my radar. If you'd asked me this 10 or 11 years ago, I would have thought that would have been a wonderful thing to do. But then when I had the opportunity, I thought, well, you know, that would be a fun thing to do for maybe 3 or 4 years. That was 9 years ago.
Wow.
I never knew that I was going to love the work this much. I never knew that I was going to love the people this much. While I had friends in the educational community from my previous career, now I've had the opportunity to go across this state and meet some of the greatest people who have served as educators in this state, and maybe have friends literally in every county. So
wow.
That is just something that has been phenomenally fulfilling to me. You know, I've worked with boards almost since I guess I was 30 years of age. I've had a board. I worked with an agency that had a board. I was a superintendent for many years, had a board. And there's something that I want to say about boards, and I'm stealing this from an event that I was at just yesterday, but I think it typifies the kind of board that we have that provides governance here at Teachers Retirement System of Georgia. And it basically says that exceptional boards don't happen by accident. They're driven by leaders, board chairs, lead directors, and committee chairs who combine strategic foresight, emotional intelligence, and an unrelenting commitment to the organization's long-term health. That's been our board. You know, that's been our leadership team. That has been the heart of this agency. That has been made this chapter of my life one of the most fulfilling professionally that I've ever had. Our leadership team is amazing. We've talked about our TRS team here, amazing. We've practiced the philosophy that the best way to improve an organization is to improve the quality of people in that organization. We hire the best people that we can. When people who come to work here, they're just not getting a job. They're selected because they are the right people at the right place, and they've demonstrated that they're among the best that we have an opportunity to bring. Finally, and I've spoken many times about happy retirees. And as I sign off, I'm excited that I will be able to proclaim with pride that I am one of the happiest people I know because I'm a retired educator. And now I plan on spending some quality time with my family, focusing on my faith, focusing on my future, and recognizing every day that I'm blessed to be able to have this journey. And you've been a part of it, so thanks for even making it more special along the way. Best wishes to you.
Thank you so
to
much.
the entire TRS team and all the great educators that TRS of Georgia serves in our state.
Thank you so much, Dr. Evans. Well, Dr. Evans, Dr. Branch, thank you so much for coming by to do our end of year podcast, ladies and gentlemen. And on behalf of the entire podcast team and on behalf of all the employees of TRS, we truly appreciate you both for what you've done and what you're going to do here in the future. Members and friends, this concludes our podcast, our end of year podcast. And we thank you for tuning in today and throughout the year. Our podcast is your podcast, and you are the focus of everything that we do relative to the content on our podcast. If you would like to share this podcast with your family and friends, we would appreciate that. And if you have feedback, questions, or comments that you'd like to share, you can reach us at podcast@trsga.com. Join us next time, next year, for TRS, Your Retirement in Focus.